to Mansplaining. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Welcome back. Vicky's already here. Welcome, Vicky. Welcome back to the show. If it's your first time here, welcome to the show. Guys, please hit like, please hit subscribe, turn your notifications on, all that good stuff that's free and takes seconds. Christian, how's it going? You doing all right today?
It's good. It's college football Saturday, so
Ah,
I feel very American, right?
all right.
It's the changing of the seasons, the
Christian, how's it
pumpkin
going?
spice latte, college football back on TV.
Right, right.
Great day. My wife, we were going to go out, go maybe to the beach or the lake, and she's like, I just want a day to kind of chillax. I'm like, sure, yeah, no problem, no fights here, no
That's the
fights here
best.
at all.
That's the best way to, it's funny, like all through my life, it's kind of like a male female thing. Like girls want to like, they want to add stuff to the plate to like, to feel involved, engaged. Guys want to like just kind of take it off the plate. They're just like, let's just, like best vacation is just sitting here alone doing nothing, like you get to eat ribs. So I'm jealous.
Yeah, yeah. So eating some ribs. So yes, I'm in a good state right now, but it's not right. What we've seen, right? I know our topic here is um, the UK and really the migrant crisis in Europe
Yes.
is what America would look like if we didn't have a disruptor like
Yeah.
Trump. Somebody
Yeah.
willing to stand up and be called a racist, right?
Yes.
To try to just be like, look, no. If we're going to have migrants, they need to come in smaller numbers and have time to integrate. You cannot bring them in huge numbers, put them in ghettos where they don't integrate, they don't learn the culture, and then when you get resistance, arrest the resistors. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, right. So
Yeah.
So yeah, you good transition. We're going to talk about the migrant crisis in Europe and the UK in particular because they've had some hot button events. We're also going to talk about some of the larger societal concerns for immigration in general, and we're gonna, we might touch upon how this affects America and some of the recent illegal immigration situations here, and if we get time, we may talk about the recent school shooting, which is truly a tragedy. But yeah, so quick.
And also, for those of
Oh
you
yeah,
watching, if you have a question, something you'd like to hear us talk about, just send us a super chat that will
yeah,
get our attention,
right.
and we'll talk about your topic.
Jump right on it.
All right.
Absolutely. All right. So migrants in UK. Now, for those of you who are not as familiar with UK politics, I am not also. Christian follows this much more closely than I do. I just focus on America. That's plenty, right? Like America's got plenty of nonsense to deal with. But for those of you who do not know, there was a recent incident it's been uh, Interior Ministry policy. They have a contract with the owner of Bell Hotel, right? And what they do is, as they've taken in refugees and migrants and asylum seekers, they will house them at this hotel, which, just a quick aside, is a very nice hotel, right? Like it's much nicer than I would typically go to as a hotel stay. But that's neither here nor there. So they house them at this hotel, and of late there have been some alleged sexual assault allegations, right? Some recent events that have been, and UK has,
Crimes
yeah,
committed by people staying in these hotels.
yeah, and UK has especially like London has had a like almost an epidemic of crimes committed by migrants, and it's relatively unaddressed because the government wants to appear, as magnanimous as they can. They want to appear, they shy away from anything that even remotely resembles racism, and because of that, they're terrified of addressing some of these concerns because they're afraid if they say, hey, this migrant is causing, problems, criminal problems, that it will turn into some kind of generalization against all migrants, and then it would, and then they'll look bad and stuff like that. So that's the general problem, right? That's the issue. That's the tension. Now, in this particular case, what's going on at the moment is they were staying at this hotel, and then this incident took place, and there were lots of protests, right? Of course, because people don't want to house criminals in their neighborhood, right? They prefer that criminals get housed in jail,
Yes.
right? And not to say that all migrants are criminals.
Yeah.
That's not what we're saying at all. But so there were lots of protests, and then they were going to close down the hotel and seal it
In
off
Epping. In Epping. Yeah.
in Epping, yes, and seal it off to migrant workers. And they actually had an original court decision that was in favor of doing that, and then they went to appeals court, and it got overturned. So there's now actually an injunction stating that the hotel cannot keep migrant workers from staying there, migrants from staying there for free, by the way. Like they're all staying there for free.
The town council wanted to stop that. Was like,
Yeah.
okay, our town can't handle this. Boom. No, the judges, like all three of them are labor judges. They're all the left, the far left party in
Right.
England. All voted in unanimous that said we can't allow this to encourage. They said it would be given into protesters. It would encourage that the protests work or something like that.
Right.
Really, I think one of the issue and why I wanted to talk about this on Common Mansplaining is the disrespect this is towards the common man in Great Britain. Right?
Yes.
We here in America don't understand British class system
At all.
We do not. we have stratifications of income here.
Right.
And so I mean there's the very poor here, right, which would be like either the homeless, unhoused, or people who are only housed by government assistance. That would be our like lowest class.
Section 8.
Then you've got the working class, people that work but are living in paycheck to paycheck. Then you've got a really large middle class, right? And these distinctions are made based really sort of on income.
Right.
Then you've got the biggest one, what everyone aspires to, the American dream is to be upper middle class.
Right.
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 Then above the upper middle class, then you've got really the wealthy, right? The people that the upper middle class, right? Those are the people who are the wealthy. Then and there's in the USA, we have 24 million millionaires, people who qualify as millionaires. You know that? Wow. And about 379,000 people a year, well, last year in 2024, qualified as millionaires, right? People coming into this wealth, right? And these are the people, right, who can drive the Mercedes and Range Rovers, your high-end luxury car kind of thing.
Escalades.
Lexus, Cadillacs. Yeah, Escalades is the wealthy. Then there's the class above that, income-wise. It's the 1%. And then above that's the elites.
The Elon Musk.
People, people that own industry titans or their Walmart heirs or whatever, right? So, so that's what we kind of understand. We think, all right, and then we see each of those when people have nicer stuff. That's what qualifies them. British social system isn't like that at all, right? And they don't even care how much money you have. If you were born in a lower class, went to public schools, talk a certain way, you're part of that class. And the lower classes are continually disrespected. And even on the political spectrum, when they have the liberal side, which is Labour, right, your middle moderate party, which is called Conservative, or the Tory party, and then your far right, which is Reform, they're all elites. And they all look down on the common man. And one of the things, the protests have been the people most impacted by these criminal migrants who, and the problem is, it's not that they're migrants or that they're of a different ethnicity. It's that they're not assimilating to British culture, right? To the West. And they're brought in such large numbers, they don't get to live around Westerners, right? And these protests are a way for them to say, no, this is unacceptable behavior, right? You need to change. And so the distinction of, and why the left is, or why the elites are so reluctant, is there are a lot of Middle Eastern or Asian, Pakistani, Indian people who do come over and integrate, right? But more recently, and those are contribute even are in government and have been doing really well, are law-abiding citizens, But because of that, then they've just kind of opened the door without really vetting, and created these problems. So
Yeah, and there's a lot of, you know, one of the
I just want to finish my point here real quick.
okay, sure, yeah.
And the problems though fall upon the common man, not the elites.
Oh, yeah,
Right. The elites don't live in the neighborhoods, compete for the same jobs. Right. The elites are only meeting the elite. The most successful Asians are going to their schools or interacting with their at high levels. And so they think, oh, you're from Pakistan. Wonderful. They're meeting in small numbers of them. Everybody from Pakistan must be as wonderful as this high achieving person, right?
Of course.
But in the mass numbers, right, the common man is feeling this, especially lower class girls were being groomed for we can't use the word here on YouTube, but atrocities that are now finally being addressed after years and years of them being suppressed out of fear that it would taint the reputation of Asians.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So finally, and really because of disregard, because the people were lower class.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the main advocates for this, he's started to get some traction now. He's kind of a Nelson Mandela figure. He's been in and out of prison. He was a lower class man. His name is Tommy Robinson. Well, that's the name he goes by. It wasn't more than that. And nobody on the political side wants to support him because he's a common man, because he's lower class. They can't associate, they can't see his struggle as legitimate because it's so beneath them. They don't want to associate themselves. So Rupert Lowe right now is the only sort of political leader who's unafraid to sort of say these are concerns of the lower class and they are worth addressing and not distancing.
Right. Yeah.
That's my point.
It's important to make some distinctions here too, because one of the problems is, and I went online and did some research about this, and one of the funny things was I'd go on BBC or something like that, or even some of the other related English journals and stuff like that, and they all paint the protesters in a very, very poor light. Like they all paint the protesters like they're far right. They've used that word like all the time, alt-right, far right. They'll call them white supremacists, and they'll say like these terrible things about all these protesters. And I want to point out, I'm sure that there are one or two white supremacists in every protest group that's ever existed, and they may even be overrepresented in these protests. But that's not the point. The point is the concern is divorced from that ideology. The concern of immigration and not being able to assimilate in a culture isn't because they're far right. It's not because they're white supremacist, if they are. And there's not even really any good evidence to show that that's what's going on. But even if they are, that has nothing to do with the argument. Again, it's kind of like they do here in America. They use it as like a slur, as a cudgel to beat down people who will say, and in Britain, it's very important that you guys understand, they don't have freedom of speech like we do, right? Yeah. They don't have any, and they even have laws that specifically hunt people who will say things freely like I could say some things that over there, if I said them, would literally get me arrested, would get me fined. They have a law in the books now that says, what does it say? It's like any statement that could cause anxiety or distress. And I'm like, what? Who could possibly be trusted to arbitrate that? Who's decide? That's so subjective. Who decides what causes somebody? I'm going to tell you something. I'm married, or used to be married, and I probably accidentally caused my ex-wife anxiety or distress a million times, because that's just women just feel distress and anxiety sometimes. There's nothing you can do, and
sometimes
that's how
being silent, not saying anything, creates anxiety and distress.
You're darned if you do, darned if you don't. I could cause anxiety and stress just by walking down the street. I could tie my shoes the wrong way. There's no way to manage that, to mitigate. I mean, that kind of thing just can't be arbitrated. And so, thankfully, I praise God every day that we have freedom of speech here in America. Now, obviously, that is not I'm not saying that you should just go around, slinging what people refer to as hate speech all the time. Yeah. But dear God in heaven, if you can't say things like, for example, a statement like this, if they were to say something like, man, a lot of these migrants are coming over here causing, sexual assault problems, and we need to do something about it, that can get you fined. Just making that statement, which over here in America, that's just a normal, you'd just be stating facts, right? You just be stating
observations. Yeah.
Right. And over there, you can get arrested for it. There have been people that have been arrested and put in jail for like years, literally lost years
Well,
of their life.
yeah, and the people who are protesting online, even like deleted online comments about atrocities or crimes committed, are getting harsher sentences than the perpetrators of these crimes.
Yes.
Right. And this is the thing, they're trying to suppress speech on this to such a degree. We don't really have a frame of reference for it. And
Right.
the protests, it's important to say, aren't in just one town. They're not just in Epping. They're
Right.
not just in Rotham. They're not just in London. They're all over the place.
Yep.
They're everywhere, and they're people of all different political spectrum.
Yep.
But generally the lower class.
Yes.
But who are encountering this, not the people who are in their gated or separate elite
Right.
places where they don't face this. Now, one of the things that really got attention, I think this got Elon Musk's attention this week,
Yeah.
was a Scottish girl
Yeah.
who, a lower class, common person, teenager. I think she might have been 15.
I think at the time, yeah, I think.
Was going out. Her has a 12-year-old daughter or 12-year-old sister that was getting harassed by migrants, in a sexual way. This was not just flirtation. This was aggressive, non-consensual kind of stuff. And so she brought out. She was filmed holding a machete and an axe to try to keep people away, to say that she was armed to protect herself. Right.
Right.
Nothing happened as far as policing the people that were coming after her sister, harassing her as her and her sister tried to walk home from school. She was arrested, right? And so they're going after the people that are complaining. The people who are victims of, have to live with this, and and trying to push this under. Now, Labor has traditionally gotten the vote of the Muslim party for some reason, even though they're far leftists on every issue, right? Their willingness to bring in migrants without and the highest numbers of any party has guaranteed their vote. So they're reelected. Labor is now in the last election. Only 34% or maybe 36%, but it's still a minority of people voted for Labor. But it was enough in their political thing because their vote split up between. It's not just two parties. That was enough for Labor to control Parliament and thus control all of government.
Right.
And so they don't want to, they're very resistant against doing anything, even common sense stuff, to check what they see as their power base, right?
Right.
And pointing where these are more votes. That's how they hold on to power. And that is what we've seen in America, that the left, when they were in power under Biden, were like, bring in these people, don't deport any of them. Right. And let's get them counted. That will give us more power.
Yep.
And when we can, where we can get away with it, let them vote, because we know they'll vote for us in high numbers.
Yep.
Right. And
always comes down to power.
So we see that was where America was heading. If Kamala Harris had been elected and won re-election, things like that, and Americans saw that and said, "Look, we've had good experiences with immigrants, but it's too much. They're not assimilating, and there's so many coming across. If you're not checking any of them, they're committing crimes, and they're acting with impunity. They're not being checked. They're not being held to the standards that citizens are, and they should be held to a higher standard. They should be having to live even closer to, like a guest in your home. Like I can put my feet up on the coffee table, guests keep their feet on the ground, kind of thing like that. Like we should expect you're here in our country as a guest. You should be not here terrorizing us, right?
Exactly.
In gangs and.
So you take your shoes off when you step in somebody else's household. You abide by their rules. This is part of one of the fundamental things that's going on here that I wanted to talk about is, if you're all right, part of this is like these are asylum seekers, right? They're refugees. A lot of them are refugees. They're saying that they're
claiming refugee status. Yes,
right. They're claiming refugee. They're claiming that their home is so persecutory, right? So bad that they have to leave their home. Now, part of the issue that we're dealing with here is that international law and all the regs in Europe and in America and basically all of the West states that if you're seeking asylum, if you're trying to escape a terrible nation, a terrible situation, you're supposed to go to the very first nation you come in contact to that isn't that nation. Now, like this guy, for example, in the UK that was just, brought in on allegations is from Ethiopia. Now, you don't need a map in front of you to know that UK is not the first nation he comes to, right? Unless he gets on a boat and circles the whole globe to get to UK. There's so many nations between here and there, just like a lot of the refugees from Afghanistan and Iraq and stuff like that. And, there's so many nations that they go through before they would get to the UK. Most of them cross through all of Europe, like going through, Germany, France, and all the way up, and then they finally get to UK, and it's like, why are they ending up in UK? Why do they end up in the United States? Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we can't have refugees here. That's fine, but like if their problem is just that their home nation is so bad that they can't handle it, they should just move to the very next nation that can handle it. If they're coming here specifically, if they're going specifically, skipping all this other stuff to go straight to UK or straight to the United States, then they're being selective. We have the right to do the same thing. We can pick the people that are best for our nation. And it's not saying that like this has nothing to do with ethnicities or race. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with people that are going to contribute and assimilate to our
We can
nation.
vet them. Yes.
Right. And so like that's what's going on. Like all these people are coming in and nobody is actually like being selective about it. They get to have all the selection power. And then they stay at these the Bell Hotel. I mentioned it earlier.
Yeah, I'm saying, yeah, the UK has created, and we have too, a perverse incentive for them to select us over a near nation that might be more culturally similar to where they've lived.
Okay, so I just got to get this off my chest. The Bell Hotel is nice, and I mean nice. Like it is essentially a 4-star hotel, like between 3 or 4 if you look it up online. But it is I've looked at the place. I've looked at the amenities. I would love to stay there. Like it is nicer. It's a nicer establishment than the house that I live in. It's a nicer establishment than almost every hotel I've ever been in. And I'm not saying that people that are refugees don't deserve a little relief. But holy cow, what this is where the common man gets disrespected. Most of the people in that neighborhood live in worse living conditions than the refugees do. Most of them, like 90% of them, are living harder week to week lives than the people who are begging for a place to stay. Now, this is an old adage. Beggars can't be choosers, right? Like, and this is where the common sense of part of this comes in. I'm not saying that you can't, have an opportunity opened up to you, but it should be like, especially at the expense of the taxpayers. It should be what we gift you, not the cream of the crop.
They should be happy with the cotton alligator Alcatraz.
Exactly,
Essentially,
right,
if it's on American soil and they're not being killed in their home country, like,
and look, I'm not saying that it has to be like a concentration camp, but there's a lot of room between concentration camp and Trump Towers. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a whole lot of space where we can find them a nice little Section 8 housing type situation. They'll have a bed, they'll have a roof, they'll have a private space, they'll have a bathroom, they'll have a fridge, they'll have a sink. Like, they'll be just fine. Will they be living like kings in the Bell Hotel? No. And that's okay, right? That's okay that they don't live like kings. Is it okay that they don't live like kings? Because nobody else in that community lives like that. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not saying that they,
that's
if
common
you've
sense. That's common sense.
Right.
But I think the resentment towards them, and you can see how that can build resentment. It's the community has not come at them because of that, right? The community has come at them because, in spite of England doing this, not only letting them live in the Bell Hotel, but essentially providing them funds for food, clothing, trying to help them get jobs, trying to roll out this welcome mat to them, that they then in turn don't put any effort into trying to abide by the culture, by the laws there. They see one of really the hallmarks of Western society is the safety to just have a child, a young person, a woman walk unaccompanied on the city streets, the squares, right? This is not something that happens in third world countries. It's unsafe. But here in the West, we have a culture and policing and stuff like that where that can happen. So to introduce in large numbers people that don't respect that, don't value that, they don't appreciate how much effort it took for Western society to evolve to that state, and they just see a person as a victim. They're like, oh, there's not a man there to protect her.
Right. And
Right.
Oh, so yeah, so Angela is saying, yeah, even, and this is a good point. Pepper spray is illegal. Like their ability to protect themselves is diminished in UK because that culture had been established for so long, right? Like because they didn't need
the
all
gentleman established. Like, I'm not going to assault you. Why do you need a weapon? Right.
Right. And now they can't even speak out against it. Like if they even use words to defend themselves, they are in trouble. Like they will literally get fined. And so, all right, one thing else I wanted to bring up too is so that people get an understanding of the proportions that are going on here. Because all right, America is a big nation, right? And we had an immigration problem here for the last 4 years with Biden. We're big, and I mean, like we're like
400 million. Yeah,
we're like 400 million people. We're like 4 million square miles, right?
Yeah.
UK is like 94,000 square miles. They're only 69 million people. They're very densely populated already. And they're having like 1 million people a year come in and immigrate to. And look, I'm not saying that, you know, UK is free to do what they want with their nation. They're free to self-determine as they deem appropriate. But like, you got to understand that if you only have 69 million people and you're letting in like, you know, 10, 20 million people a decade, it's not very long before you are no longer the original pop. You're like Ship of Theseus, right? You're like almost a different culture altogether in a few short years because you're letting such a large portion of people come in. There's no way that they can assimilate that fast. There's no way that they can adopt the culture. There's no way that they can understand the customs and the traditions. There's no way that they can, I mean, people are coming here, they don't even read our language sometimes, and like it, we're going to talk about the problem that's caused. But I mean, just Britain is so small. I just want people to understand how small they are compared to America. It's as though they were taking, like if this was America, if Britain was America, this is like them bringing in 10 or 15 million immigrants a year compared.
And this is a concern. The common man and people were so concerned about being able to control and restrict this type of immigration. This is why Brexit happened, right? Right. Brexit has brought a lot of painful things to Britain, but they're willing to take that on if it gave them control over immigration. Because before, Brussels was in control, and anybody that in any EU nation that admitted a refugee, right? Say that refugee came to Poland, right? And Poland admitted they wouldn't stay in Poland. They now can travel, get on a train, and go right to the UK, which had better benefits, right? And has a larger Asian population where they don't have to assimilate. They can just live, right? Like they want to live. So that was becoming such a problem. All of the migrants in Europe, they're like, the French are jerks to us. We want to go to England. They all wanted. So England was bearing the migration of the whole of Europe. And they did Brexit just because of that. So now that was when the Conservatives were in power. But now that the Labour is in power, they want to do even worse than Brussels want, right? And they've been reluctant to deport anyone, right? And because they see these people as their political allies. And that's dangerous. When a political party is willing to undermine their country to maintain political power, right? To tear down their borders, rather than change heart and minds, rather than really try to benefit the citizens here, just import new voters who you think will vote for you on identity politics. Unbelievably toxic. And we get a picture of that, so we as Americans can be warned against that.
Yes, beware. Like absolutely beware. Yeah, and like one more thing on proportions too. Like I was trying to look up the crime data for a lot of this, for a lot of what's going on in the UK. And something that I found out was kind of interesting. basically hide a lot of their crime data, especially the crime data that has anything to do with the migrants. Like the whole migrant population is almost insulated from anyone understanding the crime data for that. So I had to dig, and I mean I digged hard, and I still could only find like what I would call like generic estimates, right? And so like they don't have like what we have in America, like an
They don't have
FBI
the Fourth
database.
Amendment, right?
Right.
You can have. That's why we have the Fourth Amendment, because King George the English would have secret arrests.
Right.
Would just arrest people, not tell anybody. So you
Right.
don't have to disclose arrest records or crime records in the UK like you do in America, right?
Right.
And
Right.
we learn that from how dangerous that is. We need to know. We need to, a check on government is to know these things so that we as an educated populace can vote on them, right?
Right.
It's a totally like, we don't want, it's an elitist thing. The elites
Yep.
just don't want the common people to know this stuff.
Yep.
Oh, they'll overreact, or
Yep.
you know, they'll get
panic.
too angry and
They can't
start,
handle it.
you know, vigilant, and it's like, well, maybe that's the appropriate response.
Right.
And if you would go ahead and have an appropriate response as the government with the power we've entrusted to you, they wouldn't feel the need to become vigilantes, right? Or to take it into, right? If you're so worried about their overreaction, you better start reacting first, legitimately.
And so out of the crime data that I could find, what I found is basically like at of the sex crimes, the sex violations that are happening, they're like basically like an epidemic in UK. And they're 40 to like maybe even over 40% of them are happening from like these migrants from this non-British national population. And only like 20% of Britain is actually non-national. So like you're talking about a huge overrepresentation, almost double the population is represented in crime statistics. So like that's proof that they're just not assimilating the culture, right? That's proof that they just, if they're leaving these other cultures that are crime rampant to come to a nation that has less crime, one of the necessary cultural appropriations we need them to take care of is less crime. Like we need, one of the things they need to assimilate is like, you left this place
in a hurry is
right.
Following laws. Yeah.
Right. Like you left this place without law to come to a place with law. You need to also follow the law. That's just,
You need to live by it. Yeah.
Sorry. I mean, that's, it is what it is. So with that in mind, I kind of want to turn a little bit to the incident that happened in America with the illegal immigrant that got into a truck, somehow got a CDL. He got a commercial driver.
Yeah, no, we didn't talk. You know exactly how he got a CDL. He came into California. California didn't care that he was a illegal immigrant, issued him an ID as fast as he could, right? He then went to use that ID in Portland to get a driver's license. Though, even though he couldn't read it anymore, right? They gave him a CDL without testing him. So because just by saying, I need a job. I need
couldn't
a job.
Even read English.
Right.
Couldn't even read English. Like I can't tell you how furious this makes me, because you know how, like, I had to read a bunch of stuff on my driver's test. Like I had to do a whole daggone test. I had to read signs. I had to tell you, like, this guy couldn't even read English. He could not even, I just don't even know what to say. It's like, he can't read English. He can't even read the language that the street signs that he's driving on commercially say.
And then is put behind a vehicle that is so dangerous to operate.
That is not an easy rig to handle, those giant 18. And so, of course, just so you guys know, if you hadn't followed it on the news, so he makes this U-turn in the middle of the highway from the far lane. Like, this is the road. He comes out here from the far lane and cuts across all the lanes to try to make a U-turn on the highway with a truck. And so, of course, somebody else just runs. So, and I guess I don't even know. Does he not know what a rear view mirror is too? In addition to not being able to read. And so, of course, somebody else tragically slams into him, kills three, like wipes out a whole family. And it's just so terribly tragic. And I feel like this is 100% avoidable. Like,
this is why we have regulations. These are the regulations we accept, right? Yes. That if you're going to operate a commercial vehicle, which is more, frankly, as dangerous as any automatic weapon that the left hates.
Oh yeah,
we're going to make sure that you're competent, and to just airmail all the competency checks, because oh, this person's from a disadvantaged ethnicity and he just needs a job, right? Sorry, that's not good enough. That's
Yeah,
not good
yeah.
enough.
I'm sorry. Yeah, right. Like when I go to when I go to job interviews, I don't, it never even occurs to me to say, oh, I'm disadvantaged. That's why I should have the job. It never even crosses my mind. And I grew up dirt poor. I was
Yeah.
disadvantaged. But that's not the point. The point is, I go to a job interview to prove that I have competence in that job. Like,
Yeah.
how does I just don't this drive I'm sorry, I'm a little bit upset, a little bit heated about this because I feel like this is just such a terrible tragedy and it was just 100% avoidable. And I'm not saying that this is like all migrants do this or anything like that. I'm not saying that.
No,
And
but it's the leftist states. That's the problem, right? We can be doing the right thing in our state, North Carolina, or in Florida, right?
right.
But
So
if somebody is airmailing it in California, the leftists in California and in Oregon that see nothing but identity and a bleeding heart on this, they're going to let people in, and then we won't know it because we don't have checks at the border. We can't
right.
check every driver's license,
Yeah.
so we don't find
So,
out about it until unless he happens to get spot checked or
right.
he commits an act of driving so dumb it would
Right.
only be committed
Like
by
this.
somebody who could read and had no idea how American roads work.
Right. All right. So real quick, guys, I wanted to, so that we recently just had a guy that was on here just spamming, something like insecurity. Couple things. I love it when you guys chat. Please do that. Please like, share, and subscribe. We love engagement on this channel, but try not to spam. Like, try not to take up the whole screen full of stuff, and especially don't just repeat yourself over and over again. And if you have some criticism or a question for us or a comment, make that comment, but make it constructively. Try not to like just spam something over and over again just so that we can have, I asked him what he was talking about and didn't even respond. So try to keep it on topic, try to keep keep it rolling. But yeah, this guy, it's so truly tragic and it's so frustrating for me to see this. And the truth is, like, if you were to look at crime statistics, crime data, immigrants in general are just fine. Like they can follow the legal code. But as long as we're vetting them correctly and stuff like that, illegal immigrants don't have that same ratio, right? The legal immigrants can follow that assimilation. Statistically, they do well as far as following the laws and stuff. They do very well. But illegal immigrants do not. Illegal immigrants, by definition, by the way, are illegal. And so, therefore, all have broken the law at some point and continue
Yeah.
to break the law every day that they are here illegally. But legal immigrants do just fine. So it's not a thing about immigrants. It's not about race, not about
Yeah.
ethnicity. It's about adopting our culture. It's about one of the things that I am super proud of in the West, in the American culture, is being American, right? One of the things that I just like, I have such a love for my homeland. I have such a love for my nation. I would love for everyone here to have that love. And unfortunately, you can't do that if you don't ever, if no one ever adopts the culture, right? If they come here and they still think of America as like an enemy or like just somebody to use temporarily while they're here, then they're not actually, they're not coming in with the right mindset. They're not coming in to try to adopt the culture. They're coming in here to hate us. It's fine. If you want to hate the country, then stay where you are. If you love your other country more, stay there. There's no reason. Like,
We have a
I'm a
whole place. If you hate America, we have Canada. Enjoy
yeah, right.
9 months of winter while you hate us. Yeah.
Like, I don't like Canada. That's a great example. I don't like Canada, so I'm not going to move to Canada. Like,
Yeah.
I've never understood this mindset where you hate something and then come there anyway, and then like fly your home nation's flag that you had to flee because they were going to kill you or something like that, or the crime was so bad that you literally couldn't live on that street, and you're still flying that flag. Like, that's a great place to be. I'm like, yeah.
So I have a question. What do you think? And this is just hypothetical. What do you think if Trump passed a thing saying that any UK citizen, right, could apply for to come to the U.S., immigrate to the U.S., and they would be at the top of the list for vetted and above due to our long-standing special relationship, that they would be the first to be admitted. How many do you think would jump at that chance?
If we were
Right,
just the first on the list of
right.
the
Versus, obviously we're a different culture, and there are people
yeah.
who um uh struggle with that. Like, we don't eat baked beans for breakfast here. Like, just be prepared, right?
It's just part of
But,
being a gentleman.
yeah. You know, I had
I
a
mean,
really good friend of mine who immigrated from Stratford to California
okay.
when I was in middle school, because they saw that just opportunities were better here, and the culture was better. And he went back to visit and said, "Yeah, the culture was definitely better in
So
America."
here's the thing, right? And there's really no getting around this, right? If you are if you have a problem in one culture, and that culture is producing a result that is so bad that you need to leave to come to a different place with a different culture, then likely the reason that the new place is doing better is because of the new culture, right? And I say likely, I'm being facetious, but there's plenty of studies to show this. There's plenty of like peer-reviewed data that demonstrates it is exactly the rule of law and things like that that America has that produces a better result, that produces less corruption. And there's still plenty of corruption here, right? Like, it's not like we're perfect. Nobody's perfect, but there's still plenty of problems in every nation. But the reason that some nations do slightly less worse than others is because their culture is slightly less worse than others, right? The culture is better. And so, I mean, if I think that everybody would jump on the chance to be. I mean, the weird thing about it is what everybody wants is to have the American result without doing the American things. That's the problem,
Effort, yeah,
right? So like they
institutions,
come in
yeah.
and they want the result of America, the great economic opportunities, the protection from all the of their freedoms, and protection from against corruption, against like all this crime and rampant stuff. But they don't want to do the things that are necessary to achieve the this is hard fought. Like the culture that we've developed in America, the fact that we're the most powerful, most prosperous nation on earth it was not like we just like waved a magic wand and got here. It was hard. Like we had to blood, sweat, and tears. You know what I mean?
We had to go
So
through a lot of squalor. Yeah, we had to go through
absolutely,
an industrial age. We had a lot of people die. Yeah.
absolutely. So yeah. Again, I mean, man, it's just so sad. It's so sad what happened to that family. It's so sad what happened to that school shooting. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. And I mean, I've been praying nonstop for that family, those two families that have, forever, their lives have been forever changed now and forever have been, weakened against. It's so sad. I mean, I'm almost speechless, which is a rare thing for me, like
Well,
it's,
I mean, clearly a mentally unstable person, a person
yes,
that was mentally ill, right?
yes,
And we used to have a culture where mentally ill people were were sequestered for their benefit and for the general public's benefit. That their actions that they were acting out, they were so mentally ill they were acting in antisocial ways,
yep,
right? And one of the identifiers usually of that was when a man says that he's a man trapped in, or a woman trapped in a man's body. Was we'd be like, okay, tell me more about this in our institution where we live here just amongst ourselves. We don't
right,
let those people walk around free. We don't give them guns, right?
right,
And but there was a big change in the 70s and 80s, right? The elites felt like that was cruel, right? Went flew over the cuckoo's nest. Sort of propaganda became against institutionalizing the um, mentally ill,
which is
the
insane.
dangers for mentally ill. Yeah, it's insane. And now, right, we have our homeless population is much higher. We have mass shootings, and we have things where you can tell, all right, this person was struggling and needed to have some intervention, some professional intervention to reinforce to and a professional to decide if that person was safe to live out in society, right?
Right,
And or
right,
if what appropriate restrictions. And now that's rare, and it's not. We have due process, right? Government can't just do that with impunity,
right.
but to completely ignore that type of evil or mental instability exists. That's the type of thing that the liberals live in this. Oh no, everybody's has good intentions. Nobody is truly evil or
Well,
malicious
yeah,
or would wish ill will against strangers that have done nothing to them. No,
yeah,
it exists. Some people are sociopathic. It
right.
exists. Some people are unhappy.
Well,
And
there's a
unfortunately, one of the warning signs of sociopathy is men who feel that they're transgender,
yeah.
right?
That's very true.
We've had a high number. Now, this isn't an isolated event. A high number of transgender men, well, who think they're women, who have committed essentially suicide via mass shooting, right?
Yep.
And to a point now where it's a trend. It's not a
It is.
one-off. It's not an outlier. That is something that we should eventually. There should be a trigger where some person such as that, if they want to own firearms or weapons, might need professional evaluation, some sort of extra due process.
Yeah, so right. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big 2A fan. Like,
Mhm.
I'm a big fan of the Second Amendment. I believe in the right to own firearms, but I don't think that I mean, it's right there on the Nix form when you sign for it. I don't know if anybody's purchased a gun. I have. If it's right there on the Nix form, if if you have any sort of mental health issue, and by the way, transgenderism is classified on the DSM-5 as a mental health disorder, right? It's still there. They softened the stance on it every time the DSM is released. So it may not be on the DSM-6 or the DSM-7, but right now it's still classified as a mental health problem. So technically, should never legally have been able to purchase a firearm. Robert or Robin or whatever her name is. I mean, should never been able to get it. Now, this is just me. I feel like the error is with the medical professionals who do not properly, because what happens is a lot of people with mental health issues go in to see a doctor, they get treated, like they literally are on medication for it, but the doctor doesn't put anything on a record saying they have a mental health problem, because that limits their options down the line. They can't get jobs as easily and stuff like that, right? And so the doctor's trying to be nice, but in reality, what happens a lot of times is, I mean, I mean, if you're going to have a mass shooting, I mean, if heaven forbid that ever happens, but if you're
Yeah.
going to have one, it almost always accompanies mental health problems, like 100% of the time, essentially.
Well,
Like
yeah,
that
it's like
is
you're holding a package that you can hear a ticking bomb in there, and you're like, "Well, let's get this out of here so it doesn't blow up in my face." You know it's going to blow up eventually,
right,
right?
right,
And you're
right,
passing that buck down, and so
right.
that's the type of thing.
I
And
think the doctors,
it's a liberalization of that. It is a conservative, it's a very traditional idea that people that are mentally unsafe to society, that can't live in our, this is the hard fought things in Western culture, to be able to have a safe society where you can send your children to school, let them walk the
right,
streets, come home, is that you identify people who are dangerous individuals
right,
and you give them extra scrutiny. Let's just say
right,
that, right? We
right. And
can't
look,
just impunity lock them away without due process and scrutiny and medical evaluation, but you don't cower at the thought of being a transphobe,
right,
right?
right. I feel like this is something where we should hold the medical professionals accountable. I feel like this is something where if a medical professional gives a clean bill of health to somebody who obviously just has mental health issues, and it's recorded, it's documented, and then that person goes on to do something heinous like this, I think the medical professional should be like accomplice, or
Censored at least, right? Some
yeah,
sort of mark on
accessory,
their
or yeah,
record.
or
Yeah.
right, at least lose their license or something. So maybe some lesser degree of accessory, but still at least something, because I feel like they do it with impunity right now. They just like I cannot tell you how many times I've looked at the stats from a terrible crime, and it's like the warning signs were there, right? The whole time the warning signs were there, and yet either a lot of times they get the firearm from their family, so it's not like they're
Yeah.
purchasing it, but but a lot of times they just buy it. Like Robert bought it. Robert Westman bought it. He just went out and was like, he had mental health issues. Everybody knew it, and then he went out and just bought some firearms. And I'm like, how's nobody say something? How does nobody, like, I mean, I don't understand how his parents weren't involved. I don't understand how his, friends, his community wasn't involved. How does nobody say something about that? Like, that person should never have owned a firearm,
Yeah.
ever.
But we know, I mean, we're talking about just minimum standards here. I mean, obviously, for this person, like once it was identified, you could see, yeah, more restrictions. But at minimum, they should have done more to sort of flag this person. Now,
Yeah.
we've talked about like how the government needs to wield this power judiciously, right? The power to incarcerate people, to lock people up, and so yeah, so there needs to be due process. So, but at minimum, right, we can't put our heads in the sand.
Right.
We have to acknowledge it, right? So there's minimum stuff, then that should trigger. All right, the next thing, maybe the next thing isn't immediately, straight jacket in a padded cell, but it's more evaluations, or something like, all right, if he's got to pass a training class before he can own a firearm, or he can only own a pump action shotgun, or something like that, right?
Right.
Some sort of restrictions unless he's proven such and such and such.
Right.
Now, some sort of minimum. We're talking about minimums in the next step. That even though it's granting the government more power over us, is important for us to preserve our Western culture, really.
Right. I want to answer what something Wizard said. So Wizard's Cool asks, do you really think the doctors are doing mental evaluations when a patient comes in for a sore throat or sprained ankle? No, of course not. I mean, but patients
they come in to ask for puberty
when
drugs.
They ask for gender affirming care or something like that, or even if they just mention it as like, hey, I'm considering it. I'm confused about what my identity should be. That should be something where the doctor immediately writes down, not eligible for firearm purchasing. That's all. I mean, I think that should be easy enough. And the NICS form should be checking for those, right? Like, obviously, you have to lie on the form to say you have no mental health issues. Also, you'd have to lie to, if you were a felon, you're not allowed to have a gun, and you could lie and say that. But NICS picks up on that immediately. It'll say, you send the form off, and it goes, sorry, came back that you have a criminal record. You can't do this. I mean, just signing that form, you will be in violation. You will go to jail, right? So, I mean, there's that. Now, one of the things that I wanted to talk about, though, that I'm getting sick of, and I want to point this out. Every time there is a tragedy like this, there's this race to try to control the narrative from both sides, and it really frustrates me because it's like both sides are trying to spin super hard as fast as possible, right? The left immediately says, "Oh, gun control." Right? Like, this problem would not have happened if there were no guns. And I'm like, no, that's just not accurate. It's just not accurate. They will find guns. People who want to do these crazy things find a way to do the crazy things. The access to a firearm, they may do it in a different way, right? They may just use a pipe bomb or something like that. They might do something else dumb, but they will find a way to do something dumb if they're trying to do something dumb. And then the right immediately goes, like, hey, this is a cultural problem. This is a mental health issue, da 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 da. And it is. But the problem is, I don't like this tennis match. I don't like this game where it's like, oh, we have to try to control the narrative as fast as possible. Why can't we just accept that a tragedy is a tragedy for a couple of days and give thoughts and prayers to that? One of the most unfortunate things that happened with regard to this incident is afterwards people are saying, oh my gosh, how terrible, thoughts and prayers to the families. And there were people picking on them for saying that they were offering prayers to the families, like in the media. Like, the media was out there saying, oh, you shouldn't offer thoughts and prayers. That just doesn't get anything accomplished. I'm like, what? If I want to offer, a 15-second prayer, how does that hurt anybody?
Well, if you want to change public and get public support in there, if you get people to pray for you, sincerely praying for you, it's how you get people on your side and change hearts and minds. To be skeptical of that, to be, it's just people who don't understand religion, don't understand faith, don't understand prayer.
That's fair. That's fine. It's just so frustrating because it's like, to be mocked. I mean, these kids were killed in a mass, right? Like, they were literally killed in a place where they were praying actively. And now, like, all of a sudden, paying homage to that action is a bad thing. I can't. Sometimes the left is, you mentioned that the left wants to shy away from calling somebody evil. It's worse than that. The problem is, with the postmodern mindset, there is no such thing as evil. It's all relative, right? That's the problem. The problem is only one side actually still acknowledges that evil is the thing. And the left kind of acts as though it is, but if you really press them for answers like, okay, what's wrong with this? It's like, okay, well, who determines what's wrong? You know, why is this action even incorrect? Like, why is it not okay? And they'll just literally say, no, actually, it's just subjective.
Well, there is no
Really
good or
feel off
bad,
the rails.
right? Yeah, it's subjective, you know. Well, part of the thing too, and this is a little bit darker, but it's in the Bolsheviks, like the communist revolution. They saw the permanent criminal classes. These are the recidive, the people that are in and out of prison their whole lives, as their political allies, right? That they wanted them when they wanted to release them from prison or give them control of prisons, right? It's all in there, right? If you read the Gulag Archipelago, especially things like that, and that's why at the heart of leftist criminal justice reform. Now the Republicans had criminal justice reform too as well, but the leftists is that they don't want to lock people up these cashless bail because they see them as their political allies, right? And so they don't want to excessively punish them, right? But they want to keep the laws on the books. So if somebody, right, somebody who doesn't meet that identity, they can now come down on it. So it allows them to unequally apply the law, where law-abiding citizens, like in the UK, are held to a different double standard, a higher standard. And this is right. Traditional Britons, getting back to that, are held to a standard. American citizens are held to a standard. Right? We can get CDLs or things like that for free. I couldn't register a car or get a license for free just because I'm like, well, I'm an immigrant and it's hard for me. Okay, here, right? But they're held to this lower standard. It's the soft racism of low expectations. But the government needs to be needs to treat everybody equal.
Yes.
And this is just the common sense disruption that Trump has gone back to by doing away with DEI, right? And desperate impact kind of things like that. Saying, no, we're not doing quotas. We're not, putting our finger on the scales because somebody belongs to such and such identity or racial group. The government is going to be colorblind, is just going to treat everybody the same. Everybody must meet the same standards, right? If you violate the law, the fact that, you're a recent immigrant who can't read English, right?
Tough.
Sorry, ignorance of the law is no defense.
Right.
You're going to go to jail until you can learn to read English.
I want to address some people are asking why, Christian and I are both American. They're asking why two Americans are discussing issues in the UK. And here's the thing. Western culture isn't just limited to America, right? Western culture is, parts of Europe, especially the UK. The UK and America are essentially the two bastions of Western culture, and UK is losing it. The UK is losing Western culture very quickly. And so one of the reasons that we're discussing this is how it affects Western culture overall, right? And America is getting a sneak preview as to what it might look like if we start letting Western culture slide away.
Yeah, if the far left has control, right, this is where it will go. Now, the other country that is actually westernized is Japan.
Yes.
Right? People don't think of that, but Japan, and this is interesting in their history every culture that ever encountered Western culture, recognized immediately they had to catch up.
Yes.
Right. Even China always thought of themselves as they were the top culture, and all other cultures, at least in Asia, were aspiring to try to reach their apogee. But once they met Western culture, right, the English came in and set up these unequal ports. They realized, whoa, we're behind. And Japan did too. Japan at first thought they were kind of barbaric or whatever, but they sent people to Europe, to America, to study Great Britain, study Germany, study Russia, study Western culture. And they realized we're behind and this is superior. And they westernized not just their militaries with Western style armaments, they westernized their culture, right? Forced their kids to go to school in Western style. They changed their architecture to be more Western style. They adopted, they got rid of feudalism and stuff and adopted all the Western style things because they realized this is superior. This is what we need to get on board. And their success in being the preeminent power in Asia for the last 100 years plus was because of doing that. Now,
Dude, this is coming from cultures that like literally thought of themselves as like god kings. Like they treated their emperors with a reverence that like, it reached the divine level, right? They basically would consider like they couldn't even look at him at times. They couldn't even approach, the emperor, because it was just so far above. Like that's how much they thought of their culture before they met with Western culture. And then like, whoa, like all of a sudden. And see, this is, so I do want to ask you this question. If there was a deficiency of Western culture, like what would you say we need to improve? Is there like another culture that has an aspect that we could adopt that you think is like a really good?
Well, that's the thing. Western culture is adoptive, can adoptive. They find something superior, we're willing to do that. It's the openness to ideas is really, and innovation, right? Part of the thing too, you can't separate Western culture though, from rational capitalism.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
Right. And so part of the American thing was taking rational capitalism to the next level, where with our legal forms, like with patents, is if you came up with a better system, slightly better engineering and improvements, you can become very wealthy with that, which is not something that can happen in other countries. And so we drove this innovation. Like the technology innovations that America has experienced aren't in a vacuum. It's because we have a culture, a social structure where that could happen. So Western culture, right, is open to ideas. Now, ideas aren't in and of themselves perfect. A new idea isn't necessarily good or bad. There's the Greeks, had this fascination with anything new. And a weakness of Western culture is a sort of maybe a fascination with something new, right? Western culture has gone to this postmodernism, which is sort of weird for the sake of being weird. And so we can get caught up in this sort of navel gazing or whatever is new is important and lose sight of the essential undergirding strengths, right? But we don't, I think normally, Western culture wants to we encounter something new, like you take it in and evaluate it. Is that something that can improve us? If it can, let's value it. If it can't, maybe it only has limited application, if it has wide application, but we need to recognize still, but the cores of that is we value the individuals. Life has value. The Christian ideals, we need to treat other people well. The other people have value. We don't covet themselves, right? These types of things, and that culture leads to prosperity, right? Honesty, and ultimately, safety, and ultimately power, because those things make you wealthier and powerful, right?
And it creates the environment in which you can succeed. Absolutely. All right, guys, that's all we have for you this week. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Please like, share, and subscribe. I see a lot of new faces this week, so thank you so much for watching. Please check us out. We do this every Wednesday, every Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern time, and we'll catch you next time on Common Mansplaining.
Keep it coming.
Keep it coming.